We all seek true happiness and true sound by giving you one phase linear graphite makes both possible. Despite being well known in the home audio sphere, phase linear was not a name you typically heard in car audio, and they were only actually around for a very short period back in the late 80s and early 90s. In this case, offering graphite speakers and just a few different amplifiers, they were a registered trademark of International Jensen back in those days. So my friend Brantley Waits, former DB Drag world champion, SPL guy back in the day, offered up this very unique, what I would say, phase linear amplifier that I'd never seen before. I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and try this thing out. So check out the box. Check out that 50s Corvette. Check out just the look of the box. Now, this was not a US amplifier. This was one from across overseas in Europe. Around 1998, here's a car audio collection. Again, it's got that Corvette on the front with the huge blower. And here it is. This is the Monoblock. And we'll get to the specs here in a little bit, but let's go ahead and get it open and see what's in the box. And here you can see the amplifier looks brand new. I don't think it's ever been used before because the power and ground wires are still wrapped up in the original zip ties. But here's a look. Notice fan in the very center. It does have some mesh grill here so you can see some of the internals. Overall, just a very slick looking amplifier. Phase linear name there at the top left. And then we can see across the top, high current monaural power amplifier. So that gives us some ideas. Also, it says monoblock, but very interestingly, it doesn't mention anything about the output power. Now for a monoblock amp, this has a lot of different settings here. You can see the low pass. You see the safe and on LEDs. You see the parametric EQ off and on. Frequency from 40 to 80 hertz. The Q wide to narrow, and the level 0 to 180. We also have RCA inputs. And then we have a high pass crossover output, which also gives you RCAs out. And then we additionally have a switch that allows you to use low level or higher level inputs through the RCAs. Now we'll look at the length here of the amp. We'll get to the dimensions here shortly. But it is a pretty big amplifier for the ratings that's provided, which we'll get to shortly. But on the other side, we'll see this 6-gauge wire here attached to the amp, which look kind of out of place, look very big. You see the speaker outputs. There are 2 speaker outputs there, top and bottom. There's a remote out and remote in also. And then we have a very interesting power delivery potentiometer here from HC to HD. That's high current to high dynamic. And we'll get to what that does later in the video. Also, there's a LED for the 80 amp fuse inside, just under the power and ground wires. And here's the amplifier and the box together. Very colorful, very unique looking. Here's some of the specs. 200 watts at 4 ohms, 500 watts at 1 ohm, specifically optimized for subwoofers, adjustable dual tension power supply with high current, high dynamic power delivery control and calibration LEDs, 100 amp maximum power consumption, 24 dB per octave low pass crossover, and much more. As for dimensions, 17.5 inches on the long side, including the terminals at the end, 6 inches wide by 2.1 inches high. Now let's fire up the SMD DeMoor Engineering Amplifier Dyno so we can test out this 25-year-old plus amplifier. On the left, you'll see the power output in watts. In the middle, the ohm load. On the right, the voltage of the dyno. We'll also have the clamp so we can estimate the amplifier's efficiency. This is a Class AB amplifier.
You know how them sound waves go?
Now for the test, we're going to set the power delivery to high dynamic, which is turning it all the way to the right. We will change that later in the video and show you additional tests as well. Let's start off with 4 ohms. Again, this is a monoblock amplifier rated 200 watts at 13.8 volts. Let's try certified to 1% distortion at 40 hertz, and we get easily that 308, 14.18 volts. Let's reset the dyno here and try it uncertified, which takes us up to the clipping point of the amplifier. Should get a little bit more power than the previous test, and let's see what we get here. And yeah, just very little bit more, 310, 14.14. Reset the dyno one last time here for the 4 ohm test, and we will try it with the burst track, which sends a pulse tone into the amp. Get a little bit more here, 318. And get any more? 318 at 14.11. We'll reset the dyno here for 2 ohms. It's rated 350 watts at 13.8 volts according to the spec sheet. Certified test up to 1% distortion. Yes, easily check this. 500 watts, 13.91. Wow, that's what I'd call underrated here for this amp. Let's try uncertified up to clipping. And let's see what we get. 533, 13.86. Wow, this is definitely underrated for this international version of this phase linear monoblock amplifier, and dynamically over 500 watts as well. 520 at 13.92. Now, if you're following along at home and know how these amp dyno tests go, you're going to think, wow, at 1 ohm, this thing should do a whole lot more than 500 watts. Well, let's find out. Certified, and we get, well, a little bit more, 589, 13.89. I was thinking it was going to do like 700 watts or something, but still, it is definitely doing its rated power plus some. Uncertified up to clipping, can we bust 600 watts? Let's see. Oh yes, easily, 619, 13.85. And lastly, we'll send the dynamic track into the amplifier, pulse tone at 40 hertz, find out what we can get dynamically, and it doesn't do anything. It like went into some weird almost protect mode. So I was like, well, let me change this to 1.33 ohms and try it again and see what's going on. So we ran the test here at 1.33 ohms and actually ran this test without going into protect. You can see over 600 watts, still 626 at 14.26. And as you could tell by the dyno test, it really like 2 ohms. That's where it did over 500 watts. And so we thought maybe we'll change the power delivery from high dynamic over to high current. And let's try the 2 ohm test again and see what we get here when we have it in this mode. And much less power, 197 at 14.34, so it doesn't even get rated power when you have it turned all the way to high current. And we'll try it at 1 ohm, see if we get the 500 watts. You'll notice, and maybe you didn't notice, but the idle current is much lower, and we only got 324 at 14.24 in that setting. Watch at the end of the video and I'll show some additional tests. Here are all the results as well as the efficiencies. Amplifier performed really well, performed its power plus some. You have to remember, this amp is from 1998, so over 25 years old. This is not much power for today, but back then, this is a pretty decent amp. Now, in order to get into the amp, we have to take off both of the end plates, and then we'll just slide the whole shooting match out of the amp. But let's take this end plate off here, and we'll get the end plate off the other end, and we'll go ahead and slide it out. And here you can see the circuit board and all the goodies. Here's the phase linear name here on the circuit board. And here it is. There is the shroud or the heatsink part of the amp. And there's the rest. Check out the very center, that huge aluminum block, which has a fan in the middle, and the transistors are there clamped on the outside all the way around. Very cool. Reminds me of an Adcom car audio amp or one of the Harman Kardon tunnel cooled amplifiers as well. Very unique here. You can see the power supply section here at the front with the capacitors there. I couldn't tell. I think they're 1000 microfarad 25 volt. But anyway, very nice looking overall. Let's talk about the pros and cons of this 25-year-old plus amplifier. It is unique, definitely in the looks. 24 dB per octave low-pass crossovers, built-in parametric EQ, Class AB, which is good or bad depending on how you're looking at it. Efficiency is bad, but for sound quality it's good. Has tunnel cooling, variable rail voltage, which is very neat. If you're running very low impedances, you can set it to the high current mode. Now, things that could be better, relatively low power, but again, this is 25 years ago, so it's not that bad. Power and ground are attached, so you have to be ready for that. It is large for a 500 watt amp, has low efficiency, which is something you deal with the Class AB, and there is no remote bass control, although many amplifiers back in this time period did not have them. So I'm very curious for those who are across the pond and had these amplifiers available back in the late 90s. Were these something you guys look for? Or is this a brand that was kind of stood out for you? Very interested to know. It definitely looks like it's a high quality piece of kit, and very curious what you guys have to think about it. Even the guys here in the US, did we miss out? Did we not get the good stuff? I think in this case we didn't, because we didn't have this. Thanks as always for watching. Make sure you subscribe, leave me a comment. Till next time, Big D, I'm out of here. We'll try it at 0.8 in the high current mode. All right, looks like it's got its own kind of protection circuit there. Went in 365 at 14.22. Okay, I've adjusted the power delivery right into the middle between high current and high dynamic. Let's see what we get here at 1 ohm certified, 40 hertz. All right, 564 watts at 14.14.